Hi, Dan Bidondi reporting for Infowars.com. We're live at Austin International Airport, and we're going to ask a series of questions today, and one in particular: would you give up your liberties so the government could protect us against terrorists? How do you feel about giving up your liberties so the government could protect us against terrorism?
Well, I don't think it's a question of a trade-off between liberties and terrorism. I think just living in the age that we do, where there is a real likelihood or potential likelihood of threats, that there have to be certain precautions that are taken for everyone's good. I think the problem is, like with the Patriot Act, if it goes too far. So the question is where you draw the line.
I feel like it's probably the right thing to do. I mean,
TSA, with this increased security now, does that make you feel safer traveling?
No.
Yes, if anything, just to make sure that we can safely travel in the United States.
How does that make you feel to know that the U.S. government put this underwear bomber on a plane?
Well, you know, I'm a lawyer, admittedly, so I'm going to need facts to establish that, and to me, it sounds like speculation. So until I see actual facts, I won't consider it to be a true statement.
I'm Kurt Haskell. I'm an attorney in Michigan, and I was on the flight with the underwear bomber on Christmas Day while we were waiting for our flight. So we sat by the gate on the floor playing cards. And when we were playing cards, I looked up, and what caught my eye was a pair of men walking up to the counter. And one looked like a wealthier Indian man to me, and the other looked like a poor African. I thought he was a teenager, but apparently he was a little older then. But he looked like a poor African teenager. He only had on jeans and a white T-shirt in the middle of winter. And, I thought they were an odd pair, so I just kind of watched them as we were playing cards. And they went to the counter together, and the Indian-looking man spoke, and what he said was, "This man needs to get on the flight," referring to the African teenager. But he doesn't have a passport. And then the girl working at the counter said, "Well, you have to have a passport to get on the flight." And then the Indian man said, "Well, he's from Sudan. We do this all the time." And that's an exact word-for-word quote. And she said something along the lines of, "Well, I'll have to refer you to a manager," or something like that. And I think she did something on her computer, and then she sent the two of them down a hallway, and they walked down the hallway together, which was in a restricted area. And they walked down there without an escort, and then I quit watching at that point. Two important things at the end of January 2010. One was an ABC News article by Brian Ross, where he came out and said, "Yeah, this man in tan suit that was witnessed by passengers," he said passengers, but really it was just me, we're looking into this guy, and we think he actually helped the underwear bomber so that he wouldn't get cold feet. They didn't go so far as to admit what I had been saying, that that would have been impossible, that he was Al-Qaeda, because he went to the desk and said, "We do this all the time." And then he had enough authority to walk down this hallway in a secure area and talk to the manager and get the man on the flight. So obviously Al-Qaeda couldn't do that. But they did admit the existence of the man in this article. So to me, that was a big story, because it was not only the first time they admitted his existence, but they've never admitted his existence after that. But at least we have it once detailed. Not only that, but it's by ABC News, so fairly credible media, at least to some. But later in January 2010, we had hearings in Congress on this, where we had Undersecretary of State Patrick Kennedy come out, and if you watch the video of him, it's pretty telling that he's trying to cover up something and not tell the truth. He's squirming in his chair and seems really uncomfortable answering the questions. And this video is all over the internet if you want to Google it and look at it. But what he said is basically, we knew Abdul Muttalib was a terrorist. We wanted to stop him from coming in the country and revoke his visa.
There have been numerous cases where our unilateral and uncoordinated revocation of the visa would have disrupted important investigations that were underway by one of our national security partners. They had the individual under investigation, and our revocation action would have disclosed U.S. government's interest in that individual and ended our colleagues' ability, such as the FBI, to pursue the case quietly and to identify terrorist plans and co-conspirators.
But we had a request.
Okay, research lawyer Kurt Haskell and also Infowars.com. We interviewed him several times.
Right.
And
but there are lots of conspiracy theorists out there, lots of information that's totally incorrect, and so that may be very incorrect.
I mean, what if you did the research and you come to find out this is true, which is on record? Now, if you found out this is true, how would you feel at that point?
Well, it's a hypothetical question. You're asking a lawyer, so he's not going to answer a hypothetical question. You know, again, it's a trade-off in terms of fundamental rights and also things you need to do to protect yourself in a very frightening age.
All right, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Well, luckily they were able to catch him before he could do any damage, and you know, everybody makes mistakes. Just hope that nobody gets hurt in the process.
You also realize that these naked body scanners, even though they say they don't store, record, transmit it, right in the AIT training manual, it says we record, store, and transmit your images for training purposes only. And your naked image, when you walk through that scanner, your naked image is going to be broadcasted through the TSA network.
I didn't realize that.
They give off 30 times more radiation than a hospital CAT scan.
You know that? I didn't realize that either. I guess I'll be reading up more on it.
You realize you have the option to opt out, right?
No, do you?
Yeah, when you go up to, yeah, you tell them, say, I want to opt out, and what they do is they pull you aside and they just give you a pat down, which is better because, like, when you've been X-rayed in hospital before?
Yes, but they cover you up. Here.
Yeah, with a lead vest, right? And the woman stands behind, the nurse stands behind the lead wall. Now over here, as you see, now this is on record. Hundreds of TSA agents have cancer now from working around these machines 8 hours a day. You could Google this at home. It's on record.
Okay, so we can opt out.
And yep, when you go up there, tell them you want to opt out, and they'll pull you aside and give you a pat down.
Okay.
It's a little bit intrusive, but still better than getting radiated.
Okay.
In a statement, quote made by Benjamin Franklin, he said, anyone who would give up their essential liberties for security will get neither or deserve neither. Now, how do you feel about that statement?
Still feel like you need to be protected.
Well, I think that might be taken out of context because what Franklin was referencing was giving up inalienable rights. This is not a right. This is a privilege to travel across the country.
Now, does that pertain to what's going on today with the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act?
Yes.
I agree with that. But again, it's a question of degree. And I mean, there are certain things that have to be done to protect the security of everyone. The question is, you can't violate fundamental rights set forth in the Bill of Rights.
They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Now ask yourself, is your liberty worth sacrificing for this unconstitutional security? Dan Bidondi for the Infowars Nightly News.